All right, well, I'll call us to order. It's 6:32, and we know who's here, me, Kevin, and Nupur.
Yeah.
I'm still learning names after half a year. Anyway, public comment for items not on the agenda. Well, we only have one public member, Jenny Griffin again. Any public comment?
Hello. Hello.
Okay, nothing to say? All right, consent items. Well, I'll move to approve the consent items. Who wants to second?
A second.
All right, Nupur seconds. All right. Just remember I gotta write down something. Are there any questions on these items? Approving the financial report, the meeting minutes. I didn't find any errors there. Check register, looks like all the checks I found. General manager's report. Got anything to add to that?
Thank goodness the repairs were successful, so we're back online, and I think we're good to go.
All right. Yeah.
Oh, other than that, I've been testing out a couple new systems to try to replace what we're currently using. And of course, as of July 12th, we'll be going, our public swim program will go to a first come, first serve, but lap swim will still be on a reservation system. The system we have works great for lap swim, but it's really, really, really terrible for public swim.
Adding to that, yeah, we have a capacity of 40 in the pool, according to the current guidelines. And the most I've seen in a single public swim on weekdays is 17, as little as I think 9. So I think that going to public swim definitely on weekdays, it's going to work, and people, because people are staying away, I'm sure, because they go, oh, I don't have a reservation, but because if you're not there to see how underutilized it is, anyway, but we'll see. Yeah, everything else seems to be going pretty well. And all right, well, and any other questions about these items A through D, consent items? Nope. Well, I move the question. Is anybody against passing it? Nope. And it passed by unanimously by the 3 of us. All right. Information and discussion items are next. And we can't take action because we couldn't get a lawyer to come today and or get some advice on how to word things. The return to in-person meetings. I think I'm going to let Kevin explain mainly what the problem is here. But basically, the executive order takes place at September 30th is the last day you can have a meeting that's totally remote. However, yeah, and so that means our October meeting is going to have to be in person. And Kevin sent us information on what it's going to cost in terms of some computers to make that work. The other thing is, it looks like at least our vice chairman may be back in school by then in another location. And hopefully our other board member is going to stay local for school. But that brings up some discussion about, contracts and signing things. Because if 2 out of the 5 board members are gone, and of those of us here, Nupur, you can't become a signatory because you work for the bank.
Yeah, sorry.
And that's okay. Hey, it's a job, and I'm sure it's a good job, So everybody's got to eat.
Is Nicole going away to college?
Misha is.
Oh, Misha is.
But we don't know if our other board member is Nicole is going away. I think he's local, so that means every time we meet, we're going to have to show up so we have a quorum, and then so it does bring up problems in terms of signing and stuff. But that's more item B, and I said I'd let Kevin introduce this, and I've just stolen his thunder. What did I miss, Kevin?
All right. So just to clarify about the legal issue, there's an item that didn't appear on the agenda that will come next agenda. So that's something different that's not here. as far as item 4A, October will be our first regular meeting in person. And as staff, I need to know whether I should prepare to do hybrid meetings or not. Right now, because of the order N29-20, we can go fully remote until September 30th. And after that, we have to do in person with at least a quorum in person. Now, it is possible to have people do remote, but it can be a maximum of 2 directors. And there's some kind of, I don't know how to describe them, kind of weird requirements there. So essentially, any director who wants to participate remotely can do so, but they have to actually post the agenda wherever they are 72 hours in advance. And I know. And they have to open their door to the dorm room or wherever they are, hotel room, and let anyone who wants to come in and make public comment at that location. So I think that the good news is that if this is going to be something that happens, that the option is there. The bad news is that it will cost approximately $1,200 just to get the equipment to do that. I think that probably the cheapest way to do it is to have 3 iPads with an iPad stand so that there's better visibility, and then a microphone with a cardioid sort of sound reception structure, and a push to talk button. So each iPad would have 2 directors in it, up to 2, depending on how many come. So if the desire is to go ahead and have the hybrid option, then I can start preparing for it. And if not, then we can just all return in person. But if I can make a suggestion, since the 2 who this probably applies most to aren't here, maybe we can just kick this to next meeting.
Well, I don't think the sooner everybody's aware of what the possible problems might be is good. So it was good to have it on this one, you know. And by the way, when you're pushing to talk, I get a hum out of your microphone. So if that's the same microphone you were thinking of using for the other stuff, good, you know, because it's in the background. I'm not sure if anybody else is hearing it but me, but yeah, but it's not an intelligibility problem. It's just a minor annoyance. But
the microphone, it's at Rancho. This is just a webcam.
Oh, okay. Well, when you turn on to talk, I hear in the background. Anyway, but very low level, just so you know. Yeah. So so potentially the other rule he left out that if I understood it right, is that the quorum has to be there in person and within the limits of the entity that's meeting. So. That was an interesting proviso. So yeah, it has to take place over at district headquarters to make sure we're all within the district. Those of us who are showing up, you know, which may turn out to be 4 out of 5, you know. So, but it does bring up a question in the long term in terms of next year, if she's going to be our chairman for next year, but she's not in the physical area. It's going to be hard for her to sign for things too. So, and that's right. That's what we're not bringing up as an item here, but you know, we can talk about it. I'm bringing it up anyway, in that Kevin's got to be a signatory because we're down to you, me, and the poor as the only 3 people who could sign. You know, and so. When my term expires end of next year, you know, I shouldn't legally sign anymore. So anyway, okay. Any questions about this in-person meetings? I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing you guys in person, and the nice thing, Nipur, is it's air conditioned, so we'll be cooler on a hot day like today. Although, you know,
But switched on to heating instead of cooling.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Kevin's never made that mistake. That's for sure. Thank God. So yeah. So that'll be the good news. All right. So yeah, it would be nice to continue to meet this way for a while longer. given the board's makeup, but, you know, legally we can't past September 30th. So,
Can I ask a question? This is Jenny.
sure.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think everybody got Zoom stock is gonna go way down. But anyway, I was just gonna ask a question. Yeah, I can imagine this is gonna be real challenging for a lot of people, especially us. But yes, you have air conditioning, which is nice. Is there, if it comes to a situation where it was something about the check signing, could they set up a dedicated oh my gosh, not link or something where if someone was if she was actually away at school, that if she had a secure line that she could actually sign them, because like if you're going through bank proceedings or you have documents, as Nipur probably knows, you can actually sign remotely for things, especially if you're going through house sales and stuff. Can that be set up
Not
that
check.
way some way?
You
Not
can't do checks.
Oh,
really.
not for checks. Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
the physical signature for checks.
I'm going to cut you off on that, Jenny, since it's not agendized. It's a good.
Okay, sorry.
It's a good idea. Let me answer it this way. I understand your idea. We all know what you're talking about, but it doesn't work for checks. You know?
Okay, thank you.
And so we'll be discussing this at the next meeting, trying to figure out what we can do. We have to make some changes, and things just can't go on the way they always have. So anyway, but we're okay for now. And I shouldn't have brought it up. I apologize. So, all right. Board review of policy 3000 series brings up spending and contract authority. You want to talk about that, Kevin? You know, you gave us some stuff to read.
Sure thing. I'll actually just go down to the page because it's probably a little bit easier. So policy 3000, it's right here. It delegates a lot of authority to the general manager to basically do administrative functions. It's very broad, and in some ways it's not specific enough to say, hey, general manager, you can spend this amount. So it's a little bit kind of vague. What that means is that we should probably have 2 additional policies, one for spending and then one additional one for contract authority. And these 2 policies, and in fact, the authority that it would grant to the general manager, myself in this case, they're necessary to run an organization, right? Someone needs to be able to spend monies or at least authorize certain transactions. You know, if something breaks, you know, someone on site who's, you know, or at least very available needs to be able to say, yes, we do need to have our toilet fixed, you know, things like that. Now, you can imagine with the pool, you know, there's a lot of things that are going to cost a whole lot more than a toilet. And there's not really a lot of benefit to delaying certain repairs as well. So to give you an example, some of our repairs could cost easily upwards of $5,000 to $10,000, especially for pool pump related sort of things. They're just very expensive to fix. And so, you know, having an additional, essentially, you know, having a special meeting to do that not only adds a $500 cost to that, but it also introduces a minimum of a 24-hour delay in getting things done. So, you know, oversight isn't fast and it's not free. So, you know, there needs to be some delegation, and I put together some suggestions on what that might look like. Again, the board can choose whatever is, you know, whatever is going to work for the board. And so my purpose here is to maybe start that discussion and then take some notes and then come back with a proper, a more reasonable policy based on this discussion. So there, of course, no decisions are made here, but it's going to give me an idea of what's acceptable to the board so I can come back with a real fleshed out policy to kind of to go through. So let's walk through some of these. So in terms of a spending policy, the first thing that kind of came up with the whole Wells Fargo key executive is that other organizations do in fact have a staff person as a key executive on their accounts. It does make it easier to do things like, particularly when new board members come on, it makes it easier to get them to be an authorized signer. It makes it easier to remove former board members from, you know, being an authorized signer. there's certain things that are easier too, like checking the account statements, and doing stop checks, things like that. So now I've spoken with our auditor, and the auditor has told me that that's actually a normal thing. So this is one potential change that can be made. The second thing there is, of course, to include the general manager as an authorized person on the credit card. Right now, the way it's set up is that there's 2 staff people with credit cards, myself and Sunny. But if there's any kind of question on a transaction, neither of us can call in and ask what that's about, because neither of us are on the credit card at all. And it's the same with the bank. So it makes sense to have one staff person kind of have access to that type of stuff. To give you an idea, I think there was some kind of a plumbing charge for $6,500 that happened a few years ago. And it was actually fraud, but it was something that, again, staff couldn't take care of, couldn't inquire about, nothing. And so we have to go to the authorized signer or the authorized person on the credit card, and then whoever that is on the board has to go and then sort it out. So this is a second suggestion. $10,000, I chose that number. Again, we've done, I believe, 2 repairs that were over $5,000 this year alone. So again, that's just a number I came up with for discussion purposes. And then, of course, if the general manager is a key executive, that means they have signing privileges. So then, having some kind of a limit on that, or in what conditions the general manager should sign. The key on this one is that right now, Steve is signing a lot of checks. And the great majority of these checks are going to be deposit refunds. Really kind of low amount, well-documented, very routine transactions. And so what happens is if you have just a ton of transactions going by a board member, looking at too many things it's blinding, almost like a blizzard. So instead, it might be more helpful to kind of focus that attention onto transactions that are more meaningful. Again, I put these numbers as starting points for discussion.
And to add to that, it's been a struggle for me to accept the fact that the traditional way of keeping fraud from ever happening is the fact that only board members could sign. Employees were the only ones who could make out. An employee was the only person who could fill out a check. I never see the blank checks. I just sign them, but after I review them and stuff. But I think it's come to the point where we're going to need to go this way, and I lean towards the 10,000 because he's right. The checks I was signing this month, thinking about this, I sign a check every month for $3,000 for PG&E, and we spent $3,000 this month on chlorine, so and that's just an ongoing expenses. So it'll there are a few checks that come by at between $5,000 and $10,000, and the authority that he's talking about for contracts is that almost every service person you use who does repairs and stuff, essentially you're signing a contract. And so the general manager, if they're going to be the key executive in terms of signing checks, they also need to be able to approve contracts, because even Roto-Rooter, that's a contract, when you get your drain. And I didn't think about that until Kevin pointed it out. So I'm in favor of item 2, limiting it to probably 10,000, because as he points out, we've had 2 repairs this year that were $8,000, and somebody had to sign to say, go ahead and do it, And a check and balance traditionally has always been that when the check comes around to pay for it, it's always been a board member who signed for it, so, but he's right. We need to hear from the other board members to see if you're comfortable with that. It looks like it's inevitable, and but it has to be specified, because when we passed the original bylaws for this stuff, or whatever it's called, not bylaws, procedures, it was pretty loose.
Right. So Yeah, to piggyback on that, the contract authority, a lot of repairs are contracts. So there needs to be some kind of authority to approve contracts. And then of course, a limitation of a few years protects the district from, the GM, saying, okay, 100-year contract, something crazy like that, In any case, now these are some pretty big changes. And with this, I think it's important also to look at the oversight, making sure that the oversight is sufficient, because Steve was mentioning that there is a built-in check and balance the way things are currently. So when we have right now all expenses, I take a look at the invoice, I initial that I've seen it, that this is a real invoice, that we're using this service or whatever. Sunny, a separate person, has the checks, and then fills in all the information, prints it out, and then gives it to Steve, who then reviews both the invoice and the check. So no single person can possibly embezzle in this circumstance. And so what's going to happen now is that if I can sign checks, that means I'm approving and signing the checks, but Sunny is the one who makes the checks out. So you still have a little bit of that check and balance. And so at this point, what's really important is making sure that the rest of the oversight process is really strong and secure. And so I think to do this, it's going to take a lot more of a deep dive. And, I do my best to come up with recommendations, but at the same time, I see everything and the board members don't necessarily know everything. And so this would be a good opportunity for an ad hoc committee of 2 board members to take a look and make sure that, hey, this oversight is either strong enough or not strong enough, and this is how we can fix it if it needs to be fixed. So the questions, and I'll go ahead and read them, that I think are important, and again, there could be more that I'm not thinking about, is taken together, do the financial reports provide an adequate picture of the financial well-being of the district? And that includes the 2 financial reports, well, technically there are 3. There's kind of a summarized balance sheet, there's a P&L, profit and loss statement, and then there's a check register. Now, in addition to that, there's also a payroll summary that we can also include. I just don't want to include that on the agenda simply because it's, there's a lot of information on there. We'd have to redact quite a bit of it every meeting. But there are other ways to get that information to board members. So we can kind of look at it and make sure that all of the information is provided in the right way. Anyway, the second part, are the financial reports sufficiently understandable for the general public? Just trying to make sure that, what we're presenting is enough for the public to understand how, how the district's financial situation is. Are the reports sufficient to quickly identify potential fraudulent activity? Does the fraud prevention policy provide a fair method to address potential fraud in the workplace? Do the reports and their delivery methods strike a good balance between security, transparency, and privacy? And what, if any, improvements should be made to the financial reports, the delivery of the reports, and to the oversight process? And so this would be led by 2 board members, and I think it would go a lot deeper than we could at a board meeting, for example. So, so these are my recommendations for discussion purposes. So if you guys want to ask questions, I can.
Yeah, you mentioned you had a couple of repairs that were over 8,000, right? Or higher.
5,000.
Yeah, but typically the check amount, the checks being signed are probably, like you mentioned, the refund checks for deposits, which is not very high, correct?
That's correct.
So wouldn't it
You can have higher, you have a mix of both.
Yeah. So when you say not very high, what dollar figure are we looking at?
Not very high can be generally around 100 to 200, up to 500. So that's not very high to me, right? So if you pay for a swim lesson, $260, you change your mind, that money needs to go back to you.
Although they can be as high as over $500 if they've got more than 1 kid.
Right.
Yeah. So, and that is probably the bulk of the refunds and the checks that are being issued?
In the summer.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the summer. In the off season, you're going to have different types of refunds. Rental refunds generally is about $500-ish. So
still about 3,000 or less.
Yes, more or less. And then the PG&E, so the really, really, really routine stuff,
Mhm.
To be safe, 3,500.
Okay.
Um,
Under 5 for sure.
yeah, under 5 for sure. The
Okay.
slightly less, but I guess the less common things would be between $5,000 and $10,000.
Yeah.
But those are the things that usually we need to get fixed now.
Yeah. No. So agreed. So this is just an idea. How about you get the authority to the general manager to be able to do that, but with a notification condition to the board that within signing a certain amount of check, right, for a certain repair, within like maybe 4 hours or 5 hours, you have to notify the board that this was done for this specific purpose. That way, the general manager has done what they need to do. They're covered that the board was notified in time, and there's no public backlash that the general manager has no control, like he's going crazy and doing whatever he wants. Basically.
So if I understood this correctly, some type of a notification policy above a dollar amount, whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever, is reasonable, because I really don't know the normal check amounts that are written. So something like PG&E and all of those, yeah, it's like regular checks. Something that's not normal, it's some kind of repair that had to be done urgently. For in that situation where it's over a certain dollar value, just send out a notification to the board that this was done. That's it.
Okay, that sounds fair.
Um, since I sign a $3,000 check every month to PG&E and this month for one for chlorine, that breakpoint may be around $5,000 to make sure that only repairs would you have to notify the board, because he's right. The repair ones easily hit 8,000. Or above.
Absolutely. And then we don't anticipate too many of those, right? It'll probably be a couple of 3 or 4 a year of those.
Hopefully not that many. It depends. Sometimes there's none, and sometimes there's a lot.
Exactly.
And sometimes the repairs are over $10,000 too. Like the heaters can be.
Right.
But yeah, over 5, I think just the notification should work. That way you still can do what you need to do. You're still getting the urgent, things fixed. And you've also done your part of notifying, and the board is responsible as much as the general manager is. That way it's split authority and split responsibility.
Yeah, I mean, what you lose by changing, and we have to change, what I feel we lose as a board, as a person who's signed the checks now for several years, couple of years running, is by signing all the checks, I found that I've got a better feel for what the true expenses are and where the money's going, because I see the picture every month. And it's slowly, like I say, it's slowly crept up to the fact that PG&E used to be a 1,000, then it was a 2,000, now it's a $3,000 a month bill, and chlorine blew me away that we got 2 deliveries within 2 weeks, and I go, oh, $3,800. Oh, wow, how much on chlorine? And it wasn't just chlorine, it was chlorine and CO2, our 2 major supplies. But the water bill is now up to $2,000 a month, So you're right, 5,000 may be a good break point, Nupur, to say, hey, let us know if you're signing anything over 5,000 within 24 hours. And
yeah, absolutely. Like whatever is reasonable for you to be able to get your work done, as well as send the notification out.
right. Because he's right, you got to have somebody who can, and the general manager is the right person for doing that. Because because I use it, I happen to be at the pool most days, and I get to sign things sometimes every day of the week, rarely, but not, you won't necessarily have another board member who's like that, so.
If I could sign checks, I like a 2-minute walk away, but sorry.
I know, I understand. Yeah.
I will try and look for a new job. How about that?
Was there any comments about the ad hoc committee or the questions?
Not the ad hoc, but I did have a question. I don't know the term you use, check register. Is
Yes.
that circulated? Do you circulate that?
Oh, I'm sorry. I call it also the transaction report.
Okay.
It's this one, right? Hold on. This one. So it shows the
Oh, yeah.
transaction date, the check number.
So
If
it's
there is
all
one,
right there.
some are direct deposit, so it's
Yeah.
that's what'll happen here. But one thing that happens in this particular report
Mhm.
is the payee is taken out just because it seems kind of weird to have, you know, like little Jimmy's swim lessons by name in a public meeting. So I take that out.
That's fine. No, that's absolutely okay. Privacy is something important, so that works. Got it.
Cool.
So your question is, do we need an ad hoc committee? I'm not sure, you know. I think it's up to everybody, you know. I mean, it's clear to me we're going to have to change the way we do this.
Yeah. It would, the ad hoc committee would add a layer of, like, it'll be a slower change and more checks and balances and not go from 100 to 50. It'll probably be a step down, maybe.
No, it's an ad hoc committee to answer these questions and then go away. You know, it's not a standing committee. Not
No.
one.
How are these taken care of currently?
You mean the reports and basically all the oversight?
Yeah.
So the financial reports are made available every board meeting, and so, you know, every board member takes a look at the check register. Any questions you can ask then, or even if any board member had any question any other time, you can ask as well.
Sure.
But it's then, as well as the P&L plus the balance sheet, so you can see money coming in, money going out. And then the check signer, and this is one that maybe we should change here, is the check signer is the only one who really gets to see the payroll summary.
Mhm.
That one, we could put it on the agenda. The problem is then I'd have to redact a whole lot of stuff, and I think that's probably not the best use of time. So instead, you know, there's other ways of doing it. We can email it instead, right? That way, if you want to take a look at it, that works. But between these, I just, you know, I want to make sure that I'm providing enough, that this is okay. The P&L obviously is a lot more detailed, the one that I get, and that's because it goes really deep into the account level. But at that level, there's some types of variations that are just not very meaningful. But, you know, usually what it does is it creates a little bit more confusion than it helps. But that's my opinion, right? And I don't, you know, I don't want to make that opinion for the board. And so I figured the ad hoc committee could answer that question.
Yeah, for instance, currently, since I'm the only one who can do this, I download our monthly statement at the end of each month and email it to Sunny so she can do the reconciliation. And that's an interesting, awkward thing because we no longer get a hard copy on it. And then today, I initialed it because she had added all the backup to it, showing which checks had been cashed and which hadn't been cashed in detail with the names and everything on that. So I'd still recommend somebody on the board every month take a look at that stuff. I think that would be not necessarily the whole board, because then you have to make it a public document and all the names that have to be redacted as a public document would have to be redacted, you know. So I think seeing the actual reconciliation stuff would be a good idea for somebody. Kevin sees it. I'm currently seeing it. You know, it gives a better picture. And I'd say I have a question on maybe one out of every 10 or 20 checks I sign, you know, and say, oh, what's this for? Oh, okay. And I get it answered usually immediately before I sign. Anyway,
Makes sense.
yeah.
So the reason for forming this committee would just be to go over everything from a board level to say, hey, is this everything okay? Are the checks and balances okay? Are the reports okay? Just basically just like a special meeting for some board members to take a look at it and see if everything is up to par financially.
Yes, that's exactly right. Because at the board level, a lot of times it's more about, giving a thumbs up or thumbs down to a fully fleshed out idea. With an ad hoc committee, it doesn't even, you can go much deeper into things. I'm pretty sure with the ad hoc, you don't even need to have it be a publicly noticed meeting because it's less than a quorum. And so what that allows us to do is that allows us to say, okay, we're going to bring 2 board members into the office. We're going to go to a computer. We're going to look at our files. We're going to look at, the storage, how things are. The committee members can ask all the questions and see everything right away. And that's something you just can't do with a regular board meeting.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess we have to figure this out too. Whoever's going to be the signer for the account, if it seems like it's going to be me, just by the process of default, then it makes sense for us to do this committee. I can probably be on the committee as well. Yeah. Otherwise, I don't know. Like, it seems like right now it may be that if Misha's gone, then she may not be able to sign for things, and then Nupur can't, and then Steve may be transitioning out at the end of the next year, right? So, yeah, I'm okay with this, just to kind of make sure we have everything set from a financial level.
Here's what just occurred to me. If you and Nupur are the ad hoc committee, you have a legal background, Kevin, and she has a financial background, working for the bank, and you both are not encumbered by all the stuff I'm encumbered by all these years of signing checks and thinking of them all in this way I've thought about them for years. We've used essentially the same system since I joined the board 30 years ago. And so I think the two of you looking at this say, do you get all your questions answered? Be skeptics, and you'd be the best two to look at it.
I'm happy to be on the committee. Just so you know, my background is primarily business and software and banking for about 2 years.
Yeah. So basically, because I thought, well, does my experience help? And I go, actually, I think my experience puts it in the way, because we haven't had a case of fraud that I'm aware of in the 30 years I've been here. But that's why you have systems, and our audits every year, although they're not legally required. One of the things that came out of having an audit every year with fresh eyes every few years is that they came up with more and more assurance that our checks and balances were good. And we're going to have to revamp the system we use, obviously. And so the checks and balances are important. And like I say, the two of you can look at, it with fresh eyes, better than mine, and Kevin, your legal background makes you understand why we can't have to redact in public reports at all, and so you each bring strengths that I think could be good at looking at the process. And Kevin's looking at us tonight to say, hey, does this look like it'll work? Where do we want, what do we want them to come back with a proposal? And then you guys can work back and forth on that. And hopefully maybe by next month have something, but maybe not quite that soon,
Sure.
Roll it down,
So should I add this to the agenda for next month as an action item?
See if we can, yeah. It's probably going to take, my guess is it's probably going to take at least 2 months, because it's a radical change, but hey, I can see why it has to be done.
Yep.
you know, having a lot of the financial knowledge in just one person who has to go away at some point is not good. It needs to be spread around. You know, all board members need to be aware of what's going on. You know, so that's, you know, anyway. All right, what else do we need to do on this, Kevin?
Oh, on that item, just if there's any other things that should be included in the policy.
I like what Napur said, you know, if it's over 5,000, between 5 and 10,000, you know, notify the board members within a, you know, as quickly as possible. You know. So that's a good one, because they're gonna come through and we're gonna have to get the pool fixed as soon as possible. If it's $8,000, it's $8,000.
Okay.
But like I say, I've just seen prices of things go up over time, and you know, signing for a PG&E bill that's just under $3,000 is has slowly crept up to us in other ones. So, okay, I'm probably beating this to death again. I'll move to approve the Second Amendment to the agreement between the County of Santa Clara and Rancho Rinconada, extending legal services through fiscal year 2022. You both had a chance to read that. And they're raising our rates by essentially $5 an hour, you know, last year and this year. So I'll move to adopt that agreement.
I'll second.
I really don't think we need a lot of discussion on that item, you know, but tell me if I'm wrong. That's more reasonable than I thought it was going to be. You know? So, and again, County of Santa Clara legal services is the cheapest, best one we can use at this time. I'm noticing our bills from them are increasing, but we need them more. Any questions? No? All right. Any objection to approval? No? And it's unanimous to the three of us. Item B, select and vote for a representative for CDA of Bay Area Region of CSDA Board of Directors. I read all three 240-word biographies, and the person all three are qualified, you know. I just picked the first one because he was the incumbent, and CSDA seems to be running well. So I didn't see a reason to replace him, although there are both the other two are a little less qualified, but qualified. What do you guys think?
I like the second one because he's going to bring in new ideas and experiences from different areas. He's worked at different locations, so he has more. He bring insight of, you know, what other places are doing too.
I'd probably go with the incumbent as well. I don't know too much about how it operates, but if he's in there and he's been doing a good job, I'd probably go with him, keep him on. But I have no strong opinion about it.
So, go ahead. So you like the incumbent for what reason, Kevin?
Oh, just because he's been in there. I think if he's been keeping it up, like for similar reasons to you. If he's been in there and it's been functioning well, then I don't see a reason to change him out.
Right. Yeah. And the second one I've forgotten. The third one I liked because she was a minority, you know, and I go, oh, she's bringing a different perspective, but and maybe that's oversimplified thinking on my part, you know. So, but yeah, I go, who's the most qualified? And I said, well, the incumbent usually is, and and they don't seem to be screwing things up. So, and it's a real tough choice. We're only one vote of however many special district members there are in Bay Area region that vote. I don't have a good feel for that, Kevin. Whether there's 20 votes or 7 or 3 or what. Well, there's at least 4 because there's us and these other 3 groups that these guys are from. So I'm sure there's a lot more than 4. So, Nipur, do you feel really strongly about liking the second person?
No, it's fine. The incumbent's fine too. But I just thought that change would be nice, but it's fine.
Yeah, generally speaking, I like I like the change would be nice too. So I'm always divided that way when there's an incumbent versus change. I go, well, bring some
Does
fresh.
our district give 1 vote, or is it the 5 of us are voting?
Our district has picked 1.
1, okay.
No, we can't pick 3.
One each.
Yeah, no, I thought it was maybe it's 1 each, but
Oh.
we decide which one. Okay.
No, yeah. So we
Yeah.
need to agree on one person. And then
Yeah. I have no strong feelings either way.
Yeah. Well, I say I'll move to approve the incumbent, since he seems to be acceptable to us. Least common denominator vote.
Yep.
As all 3 of us say, he's fine. The other 2 are fine. I just didn't see anything strong that pulled at me and said, "Oh, this person would be a lot better than the first one I read." So I moved to pick that person, and it sounds like I'm getting no objection. So, all right. So that's the way we're voting. Not a big.
What's the second?
We need a second. Yeah. Who wants to second that
take a
motion?
second.
Okay. If we're seconds and nobody objects, it's always doing these votes is always weird. How do you pick? And three is more than we usually get.
Really?
Yeah, I think usually we get 2,
Hmm.
but my memory could be wrong.
Normally they're not disqualified either. Yeah.
It's a good position to be in. Then the vote will actually matter.
Yeah. What was that, Kevin? You said about qualify?
Yeah, these ones just seem really extra qualified.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, we couldn't disqualify any one of the 3. They were all good, which is good. So, all right. Well, there's nothing more on the agenda per se. So I guess I have to adjourn.